like to briefly introduce you to Zen Jefferson, who's sitting right next to me, to my right. Zen Jefferson is a Swiss-American performer, DJ, and sound collage artist based in Brussels. In 2006. Based in Berlin. Oh, okay. It's updated. Okay, so it's Berlin. Based in Berlin. Okay. In 2006, you graduated with a BFA in dance from the Juilliard School in New York. He has danced with choreographers and companies in Europe for the past 10 years, exploring themes of race, gender, ritual, and futurism through the performative body. His collaborations and practice interrogate the intersections of racial politics within performance, identity, politics, ritual, and healing that seek to disrupt the imperialist, white supremacist, capitalist patriarchy, using the body, sound, and community as a transformative vessel. And I think there is a lot we talked about during our conference last weekend. A lot of these kind of topics mentioned in your short CV like came up as topics during the lectures and presentations we just had. I think we can have a discussion about this also. But I will like to start with Lamin and ask some questions. And the idea of this panel is to leave now the Drexciya narrative, right? And the mythology we just heard about in the presentation by Dash and in the film by Yvonne Wilhelm, which Lamin scored, and to explore two current artistic projects that kind of are connected with some aspects of this Drexciya narrative without like taking place within that narrative, right? And one aspect which I found deeply interesting in your work, Lamin, is this reference that you make in your EP, Another World, when you talk about the sea, right? And we also had Yvonne's film here screened. And maybe before we talk about Another World, it just comes to my mind, I would like to ask you some questions about actually the music that we heard when we had the film projection. Though, can you tell us a little bit about which music you played when we had Yvonne's film screened here a couple of 2 hours ago?
Yeah, I think the first about the first 15 minutes of it was stuff that I made in the last week. I'm in production mode right now. I'm working at my home studio. So when this project, I'm supposed to just play music, just ambient music to enhance or complement the images and the narration and the narrative. But I scored it mainly towards the images, like the picture and the movement and the repetition of like, not so much the narrative, but it's informed by that, like the heaviness. Even though the voice was a little bit like light and British, but I think the story itself is, it's deep, and some of the sounds are like, this is the very first time I've done something like that, like playing basically like live soundtracking, live DJ sets of him. I was up for the challenge, but the main thing was trying to find the balance between the voice, so people can hear what was being said, and the music, and trying to make sure it doesn't like overpower or trying to find the right dynamic. And so constantly I had to like pull back, and but yeah, I hope it was good and people enjoyed it. Yeah.
Absolutely, a lot actually. I was fascinating because I was following your cooperation with Yvonne via email, and actually you haven't ever met her, so it was like really interesting. What was it like for you, like to work from this kind of distance, through digital media, and to get into this narrative, because this narrative is a very personal thing, right? So what was it like for you to have like this kind of distance and also like this very kind of personal story narrated through the film?
I think we've been doing that for a while, just like production or collaboration through distance. So it wasn't that strange, but and there was a lot of well, there was a lot of material provided. Like all the narration was already like I was sent a PDF, as you're aware. So I first read the whole script, and I got the tone and so the vocal or the voice was unexpected. Like I wasn't expecting that accent and that like casual narration of something. I mean, there's some humor in it, but I think I had to change some of the sounds after I got the voice. Like I'm like, oh, this is too dark. But I guess yeah, and I kind of prefer like I like to be face to face working with people, but I also like the idea of like okay, now I handle the sound and you give me all of the material that you have, and then I can just like I don't know, like no pressure. Like you don't feel like you have to like immediately give somebody a feedback, or like you don't have to make up a sound right then and there, or you don't have to. So I kind of like that idea of like, okay, well, I have I don't know 6 hours to come up with 2 minutes of music, and then I'll end up making like I don't know like 12 minutes of music, and then you pick the right moment.
It's very interesting what you say, because actually the first version of the film is in German language, right? And for this occasion, Yvonne and Christian Hübler, they produced an international version, right? And cast a speaker, especially for this context right now. So this was I think it's also interesting to know that this was kind of a premiere of this piece. Actually, it was performed, I think a couple of months ago in Zurich as a performance where, I'm sorry, Yvonne is the narrator, right, live. So that was like the idea, and the DJ set was pre-recorded, and she was telling this thing live. So it was like kind of a lecture performance thing. And now for this occasion, we decided together to have it here, to produce it in this, to have it like presented in this way, right? Mm-hmm. But I'd like to get to your work as a producer and a musician, and I'd like to talk a little bit with you about your EP, Another World, where you reference the sea. We were talking a lot about the sea and the ocean as a space, which is also a very important reference for Inke and me in the exhibition. And you reference it a lot, as I mentioned, and you use electronic music, techno, as kind of a vessel to comment on what's happening on right now on the Mediterranean Sea right now. You talk about refugees, also from a lot of African countries dying on the sea. First of all, I'd like to ask you, before we get into more detail about this, what's the idea behind this piece of work that you produced, Another World?
I think I'll talk about the idea. There was some personal things going on also, but this was in 2015. Like in the summer of 2015, I think the migrant crisis. I feel strange saying migrant crisis, but it had been going on, especially like the European migrant crisis, because it's global. Had been going on, and it had reached like a fever, like at its highest moments at that point, in which like politicians had to like start to just like come up with solution, like I was living in New York at the time, in Brooklyn, and just before that, like there was the Ebola crisis in Sierra Leone in West Africa, and before that there were like floodings in Freetown and parts of like Nigeria, and like in which like hundreds of thousands of people, I mean not hundreds of thousands, like hundreds and of people, like 600 people died in like Nigeria, and Sierra Leone there was 300, and the latest flood which happened this past like 2 months ago, like in Sierra Leone, in Freetown, 600 people died. But anyway, I'm talking about like floods because the migrant crisis. People are moving because you can call them economic migrants, or however that's humans. We are nomads. We travel. We try to find the place, where we can survive. Where we can, our children can survive. So if we are like your poor neighbor and you have the McMansion, or you have the mansion over there. There's I don't want to continue rambling, but there's like some. I even had a cousin that was en route. Like he was in Turkey he was living in Senegal, and he made by road. He's in Berlin now. So who I was communicating with, it took him like over a year. To get to, and he was in Munich. He was in a refugee camp there. And it's people see mostly like young African men making this trip because they're the most able-bodied, to actually try to change their situation. And the title, Another World, I know it's kind of like, it's a little bland, but it is like that idea of, I wanted something immediate, something urgent, because the situation, I didn't want to, it's not too much myth making or masking, and I mean we engage in a fair amount of that as like electronic music, like conceptualizing stuff. But it's like you can call it I don't know what I shouldn't go there. Yeah.
Okay, no, it's fine. Thanks for sharing this. Just another question. What do you think? How can techno electronic music be a means to comment on such a humanitarian catastrophe happening right now? And can you play maybe some examples from that EP?
I'm trying not to play something from it, but if it's helpful, I will. It's like how can techno like address that is such a serious question, but it's not. It's also like whatever you do, like you exist in the world, and I think as you hear all this like that Drexciya and Dash's lecture, like just contextualizing it and giving you people are enjoying this music probably this weekend, tonight, like without the context, without the like I think he mentioned Berghain, where like if I'm not on the list, I can't get in usually. So I don't go there anyway. Like I live in Berlin, but like I'm only going to Berghain when I'm on the list for something, because anyway, so it's and this is music that was created by poor African American and poor Latino Americans, and so yeah, it's you can make music, but it's if you put some people can say you don't have to put, or you can put politics in music, you can mix the two, but sometimes like as instrumental electronic musicians, you can do it piecemeal, like just little by little. You can put like you can code it, like put some. But I think at some point you might just, you might just turn into like a Bob Marley, or like just come out and call it what it is, or just because it's music, people are going to enjoy it anyway. And if you name the track titles, or if you do like vocal samples on top of it, and make it blatant, make it obvious, like you see it, like. I mean, as long as the music is good, because that's the thing with the Drexciya stuff. Dash was talking, but that's music that if you hear, and you like electro and techno, it's like the upper echelon of it. Like it's not something that somebody can play in like a techno club and people are like so. For it to like have like a political message also. Sorry, I'm still in like the Drexciya mode.
No, it's perfect.
I'm talking about Drexciya.
Absolutely. But would it be possible maybe to listen to some music from this EP, or would you like to play?
All right. Okay. I'll. Sorry, I didn't know we were going to play. I would have brought a vinyl, but I'm sure we all have these things in our pockets.
Just one more question. You were referencing the talk that we heard about Drexciya, and I'd like to ask you: is there, thanks, is there a relevance of Drexciya's body of work for your own practice? So, has it an influence on you? Where do you see your own kind of artistic voice when it comes to this discussion of imaginary worlds, and the Drexciyan narrative and approach and practice?
Yeah, obviously, yes. There's I think Drexciya kind of the first Detroit techno I heard is from Carl Craig, probably like a lot of people. Like in the late 90s, early 2000s, and I didn't even know what it was, but you know, it stayed with me, and I didn't listen to techno mainly. I listened to hip hop and dancehall for years and years, and but techno was something that was there. I was aware. I was aware of like Jeff Mills and underground resistance and stuff like that. But I came into like listening to Drexciya. Basically, I had to do like a reverse journey. I came into it I came to them listening to like their albums, like the ones that the later albums that Dash was mentioning. Well, that were a little bit more like you know, beautiful and much more with positive energy, and not that I didn't like the early Drexciya stuff, which was you know, like, yeah, which was like pretty like hard and like can cut through anything. But I think they you know, it's just being a fan of the music, of like electronic music, you know, just the same way, because I think Drexciya created a world, and even if you don't know it, if you just listen to the music and follow the music, they're more exciting to me than FX Twin. and I do like FX Twin. It's just that I think with all of you saw the diagram that the Professor Dash put up there, like you saw it, like with all of the worlds that they created, like, and all of the projects, like that. So once I started, like, I heard like their last two albums, and I still think I'll disagree with Dash that for me, like my favorite album is still like Grava 4, you know. I like when they went out of space, when they further just like complicate their own mythology. It's like, okay, you've gotten used to us under the sea. Now we're going to discover a galaxy. So it's all of that, like the idea of like world building and myth making, and I think also being a fan of hip hop, like it's the connection between Drexciya and like Wu-Tang Clan or even Outkast, you know, there's usually so so I for inspiration and also for just like you know, just sometimes just study, like, and not, the thing is, when I was making Another World EP, that was the last thing on my mind. I wasn't listening to Drexciya, like, no, but then it one person made the connection, and another, and I was like, oh, maybe there's something there, but it is what it is. So it's like, you know, if you listen to something way too much, like it's, you know, like Yvonne say, like it seeps through your pores, and there's like remnants in your system that you're not aware of. Yeah. The idea of like using music to, I don't know, like, I just saw the new. I'm rambling here, but I think I should mention this. I just saw the new Blade Runner, and it was great. But it's a movie that deals with slavery, with like the replicants. You know, like in Los Angeles, of all places, in 2049. And I think there was like one black character in there. Like a movie that deals with slavery in Los Angeles, where like you saw that map that they put up about the Great Migration. People also went west. African Americans did not just go to Detroit, but they are, you know, there's like whole neighborhoods in Compton and in Inglewood, like there's whole black communities in there, and I'm like, you know, and it's tough because like it's, you know, it's Blade Runner. Like I just want to, you know, it's a movie that I watched when I was like 14. Like, so I was like, I just want to sit here and watch this without criticizing anything. But it's like, it's so obvious that it's like you're making a movie that's like so like ripping from like, you know, the slave narratives in America, and you don't have any major black character. It's like, what the, you know. So yes, that's what I'm saying. And it's like I had to like enjoy the movie and the soundtrack, but it's like it left like a heartburn. Like so this is the reason why projects like Drexciya and world making, myth making, it's important when we tell our own narratives and tell our own stories. So if in one way that's an influence from Drexciya that tells me to say something, you know, like let your imagination roam, like just you know, don't settle for just, you know.
Thank you so much for this. I think this is a very, very, very important point. And I'd like to follow up on this actually, because the whole project that we do when we talk about Afrofuturism, it's also about this question of representation, right? What you just mentioned. Therefore, I'd like to follow up and ask you, does this have any importance for you, or do you connect somehow with this set of ideas, of aesthetics, of practices when we talk about Afrofuturism?
Yeah. It's I think it's a continuum. Like it's something that's I don't know if I think we've always been trying to like imagine like or I mean, it's just the thing, like struggling people always try to like imagine fantastic futures or what could be. So, and I think worldwide, black and brown people, are struggling and have it the worst with like, as we noticed with the recent like storms in the Caribbean, like the hurricanes and I think climate change is going to affect more black and brown people, which is like the future problem. And I think we're just beginning to like deal with some of the like just the denial or the implication of like of what's happening. And this is just at the beginning. And it's like we saw the treatment of like like Dallas versus San Juan, Puerto Rico, versus Puerto Rico, like the response. And also that what I started with again, the floods in Sierra Leone, that same week that those floods were happening in the Caribbean and in actually in Hurricane Harvey in Texas, that same week, I think like 1,200 people died from a monsoon in India. And I didn't see it in the papers in Berlin, but Hurricane Harvey, which killed like I don't know, maybe in the tens of people, like it was. I mean, sometimes like I've been living in Berlin for like just over a year, but you look at the papers, they're really like focusing on America, and it's like you see what's going on in India, and also that's like the week before, 600 people had died in Sierra Leone, and just this like the what lives matter, like and it's like okay, well, 1,200 people died in India. All right, yeah.
Thank you so much. I think we can all agree on this, and it's a very, very, very important point. Of course, I would like to kindly ask our dear colleague Zen to join our discussion. Another very important aspect, I think, when we try to think about or conceptualize Drexciya's body of work is this aspect of the post-human, right? We talked about this a lot in our conversations beforehand. So this idea of becoming something else or someone else, like to maybe get out of this binary also. In your body of work as a performer, you also deal with these questions of representation that Lamin was talking about when he mentioned the latest Blade Runner. And actually, we had also plans to show one of your performances that you realized, together with Christoph Winkler, the Black Cyborg performance. We couldn't do it, unfortunately, because there was no proper theater space available in this period of time. Maybe we can do it in the future. It would be fantastic. But this is something that somehow connects to what we're talking about through this kind of pathway of the post-human, right? And I would like to ask you what this Black Cyborg performance is about and what the main ideas behind it are.
Well, the Black Cyborg started about a year ago. Myself and Christoph Winkler, we found this article that was by in the Son of Baldwin. It was looking at the cyborg in the DC Comics. He is a Can you hear me? Yeah. So this Black Cyborg figure was created in the 1980s, actually. The Cyborg from the DC Comics, part of the New Titans series, and he was Victor Stone was the protagonist. He was very much created by two white writers. Very much created within kind of like this white fantasy of what a black superhero could be. He embodied many stereotypes and kind of negative portrayals of blackness. He was very docile. He was very kind of in service to Superman and Batman and Superwoman, and really kind of this infantilized figure of the black male body. I actually have a part of the article that inspired this kind of creation that I'd like to read some excerpts from. It's called "Humanity Not Included: DC's Cyborg and the Mechanization of the Black Body." Victor Stone whined and complained and was possessed of a great deal of self-pity, which seemed to be some sort of subtextual commentary on how white people feel about black people's complaints regarding structural and social anti-black racism and white supremacy. Through Cyborg, the white gaze was able to position black people and our grievances against our circumstances as not only invalid and pitiful, but also as self-inflicted. In the new 52 edition of the DC Universe, Cyborg is a founding member of the Justice League, the token minority replacing the former imaginary token minority, John Jones, the Martian Manhunter. And sitting right alongside the token woman is Wonder Woman. This is no accident. For many white people, diversity and tokenism mean precisely the same thing, but beyond that, they are also looking for a particular brand of marginalized person to include, someone who will not disturb the existing state of affairs, who will operate essentially as a white, heterosexual, gender-conforming, middle-class man, but in slightly different drag. In his previous incarnation, it was unclear whether Cyborg was a fully functional sexual being. In the new 52, it's clear that Cyborg has no genitals. The accident that turned him into a cyborg has taken every bit of his flesh, other than his torso, arms, neck, and head. Thus, it's safe for him to be around Wonder Woman, as he serves no sexual threat and no competition for Superman. At the same time, conversely, Cyborg serves in the racist mold of the buck. So, of course, he's an athlete. Of course, he plays football. White supremacy must always find some productive use in black bodies, must always be able to capitalize off our labor. Oftentimes, when white writers are attempting to write black characters, they rely on stereotypes because they can't imagine black people as actual human beings. They are the creations of these are the creations of people who don't know any/many black people, but have seen plenty of them at basketball games or on television, or maybe even had a beer with one and considers them a friend. Cyborg is also the resident chauffeur, boom tubing the Justice League wherever they need to go. He is their digitized administrative assistant, interpreting and relaying data as their command, serving actually as their very means of communication, as much of a tool for the League as a cell phone or as enslaved black people were to plantation owners of the American antebellum period. And the stereotypes don't end there. He's best friends with a young white boy who transforms into the adult hero Shazam, a relationship that is nothing more than an updated version of Jim and Huck from the Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, encompassing the same racist subtext that places black adults on the same emotional and psychological level as white children. Could Cyborg be the book's superhero representation of white supremacy's effect on the black body? To have a black person transformed from a metaphorical machine to an actual one? Whose fantasy is this? Cyborg has the distinct textual feel of some white person's answer to the question, what would it be like to bring a lynched person black to life? The problem is they've got it entirely wrong, and I think that's on purpose. They'd imagine that the person being compliant, thankful, eager to please white people, and not a disruptive and liberating figure of rage. So this was kind of the article that kind of spawned the creation of this solo dance work that I made together with this choreographer Christoph Winkler in Berlin. And so we wanted to take this figure that had kind of been bastardized and used for kind of in this fantasy, right, this white imagination, and kind of hijack it and queer this figure, use this figure because he's half man, half machine, right? He has no genitals. He has can connect to every computer on the planet. And so he has these kind of post-human capabilities that I think were very interesting as a vessel and as a model. Also being a human and being able to kind of, what is that experience inside a human flesh, a human body, to use this figure as a kind of vessel to navigate these kind of experiences, and to say, okay, how would we use that if we would write this figure, if we would write the cyborg figure in our own history, how would we use that, and how would we create a landscape to kind of discover and filter these ideas? Yeah.
Also brought a trailer. I think it would be actually good to see some extracts of the performance, so maybe we could show it so that we can speak about it, that all of us have kind of a first impression about what it looks like.
Likes the color green, has alien and force field technology, can harness willpower, white man, comes from a rich family, enjoys driving fancy sports cars, thinks he can fly. Black man, youngster, half man, half machine, has cybernetic and technopathic powers, no genitals, has a laser for an eye, has a broken heart, brown body, and 3 white bubbles.
We sit here and hope that someone else will save the world. You're the one. If not, you are the prototype.
Thank you so much for this. 2 questions I'd like to ask you, or maybe you could elaborate a little bit and tell us about it, about the development of the movement. So how did you develop this kind of vocabulary of dancing movements that is, for me personally, I'm not in the context of performing arts, but it's something I've never seen before. So, yeah, maybe you could also elaborate and tell us a little bit about the musical aspect of it and about the singing, especially like in the end. I think that would be also interesting and maybe connects us to the DJ set that we will hear later.
Yeah, absolutely. The movement kind of came out, there was many different scores, also over many different periods of working, but essentially they were all kind of these transitory states that I tried to go inside of. We set up different obstacles within the space. objects that I interacted with, kind of narratives or constructions of the comic universe that we would play with, stereotypes of blackness that we would also kind of adjust and reconfigure and examine and kind of look at. But I think in terms of a movement practice, I tried to go into these the best way I can describe is these transitory states that I would kind of open up myself to the physical experience of the archive of Black being, the physical experience of Black being, which is so vast and so grand, and so trying to kind of access that huge physical archive of a Black experience from my own personal experience, being a Black body, but also the archive of the collective, our collective experience, and trying to kind of channel that and all of the rage and the pain and the sorrow and the nuance and the complexity that I think structurally and socially has been also denied to us, right? I think Blackness is largely kind of often structurally and socially rendered simple and without complexity. And for me, it's interesting to be able to shift and kind of be this fluid body that I can kind of access all these different, this full spectrum of emotionality and physicality, but also kind of really channeling not only my body, but also this whole lineage, this whole passageway, this whole trajectory of spirit and of ancestors that I come from, which is very powerful. So kind of accessing these different states throughout the work, that was for me very interesting, and trying to kind of channel and surf what came up. Every performance was different because I would be in a different state and I would channel different things. But that was kind of my focus. Every movement score had its own kind of direction, but that was kind of a general overall how I approached the movement.
In the festival, we talk a lot about technology, or like different narratives about technology and how technology is also used in artistic production, which is a very important factor in techno music, electronic music, but also in this character of Cyborg, right? So my question would be, in which way do you think that this appropriation of technology, or the idea maybe of the post-human, can also be like in parallel to, we speak a lot about this kind of how stereotypes are kind of perpetuated, right? But I think the idea behind the performance is also that it can be a possible way of also self-empowerment and liberation, right? So what is your idea about this?
For me, I can only speak kind of from what my background and what my knowledge is, and that is, for me, it's the technology of the body, right? It's the technology of my body, of my physical being as an instrument, as a machine, so to speak, but also how we kind of organize ourselves collectively as a collective body, right? And what does that do? And what kind of space and what kind of atmospheres can we create as a collective body and a collective experience? So that's, I would say, technology for me is really kind of channeled through the body. Yeah, that's for me. That's what I would, how I would, and being able to kind of oscillate between these different forms.
Just one remark. This is actually something that was also mentioned twice or three times in the conference in different artistic positions. I think for us, it's also who were present during the conference a very interesting thing, like to just make this connection, right? Yeah. Maybe one last question before opening up and inviting Dash also to our panel. We will hear later this evening, this night, a Black Cyborg DJ set. You will perform as a DJ. Can you tell us, without giving away too much, a little bit about what this project is about? Yeah,
I mean, I initially made. I have a monthly show on Berlin Community Radio, as Lamin is also on there. And so I have a monthly radio meditation kind of. It's like maybe a mix between a podcast and a soundtrack, I would say. So I made kind of in preparation for this performance, I made a companion Black Cyborg DJ set. So this is maybe a sister companion to that. That's similar, but it's also different. I think it's, for me, like what I was saying before, it's kind of also really embracing this complexity and this nuance of Black being and Black actualization that I think is so important. But also going back to Drexciya as well, what I think is so interesting and important is that they really that they chose their site of inspiration as the ocean, as this uncolonized, untouched area that they could kind of be autonomous, that they could kind of like. But also in Detroit, wherever they stayed in the house, they didn't go out, right? They kind of kept to themselves, and they really were like Sun Ra says, like what would it be like to live on a colony and of all Black people without any white people? Like how would we create? How would we live? How would we survive? This notion to kind of re-centralize brownness and Blackness, right? Living within this structures that we are not centered, right? So what does it mean to re-centralize brownness and Blackness? For example, I've been in Europe now since 2006. I've never been to a dance or a theater performance where I've been the majority, right? I've always been the token. So imagine going to a theater and performance for 12 years now, right? Something, and always being one of a few people of color, right? Always noticing in every social situation, performance situation, that you are the exception, that you are that this space is not structurally designed for you, right? What does that do to your psyche? What does that do to you as a performer? What do you do in those spaces, right? So for me, it's also about kind of reclaiming this space, reclaiming these spaces, and trying to self-actualize, I guess, really, in many ways. I have a small thing about what this set is. It's so this Cyborg set is a sight, experience, meditation on Black softness and sorrow, rage and radiance, transcendence, and self-actualization. I'd be happy to talk about it more when it's done, but I'll just, for now, let that be it.
Thank you so much, Zen, and thanks, Lamin. And with this, I would like to invite Professor Dash, and to open up, maybe if there are some questions, we will take them now, happily. So, thank you both. Okay, are there questions for our dear participants, artists of tonight? Are there any comments?
I would like to ask about the Black Cyborg. What do you think does this say about the vision of the creator of Black Cyborg, that the Black Cyborg doesn't have any genitals?
I think it can go both ways. I think it can be seen as this kind of this stereotype of the big Black male having a big penis and being then castrated, right? In this white imagination, so that he's more docile, right? So that he's more kind of safe to be around white people. But it also could be, you could also flip it, in which is what the version that I took is that it's kind of beyond gender, right? It's kind of this future imagination, a future queering of Black and brownness and what it can be. So I think it can go both ways. For me, I chose to take the latter version because I think this gender fluidity is really interesting if you look at it at that angle. So I think you can take both. So.
Any more questions or comments? Aya, over there.
Yes, hello. I really wonder if there, especially to the Drexciya nerds, if there was any statement actually about class, because it is always about like obviously white and black, or like maybe it's not even like against something. I think it's rather like building a community. But there's not. I didn't find any statement for like the rich or the poor or something like that.
I will try to answer in English. At least I will try to. Officially, there is no comment by Drexciya on class. Yeah, class doesn't matter for them. They are born as underclass people in Detroit. Underground resistance had maybe more luck. The originators of techno are called Belleville 3. Belleville is a kind of better place for living in Detroit, but Drexciya grew up in a hard social surrounding, yeah, but they never did an official comment on class. So at least I don't know. So maybe Mr. Fries is in the house, J.C. Clayton is in the house. We have a lot of experts here, so maybe they have heard more.
We have a question over here.
My English is very bad, so.
Mine too, yeah.
Is there any comment about the role of women in this whole context? I love the music, but I see only male conquerors and.
Yes, that's an interesting point. Of course, the myth is based on females, yeah? The female bodies being thrown overboard. But the designs, the Drexciyan people are male, you're right. I've never seen a female Drexciyan. So, but I don't know, maybe as they are not male, they are something in between, because maybe they are something like a cyborg. But this is a thesis. I'm not sure. Well, what do you think, Lamin? Do we have female Drexciyans?
Yes. Did you, when you played the Bubble Metropolis, the voice? So they may be represented in the actual music. Women are represented in the actual music, but I think. But that's very interesting. The thing about the characters or the cartoons and stuff that was created, it's usually like an army, and then there's like a rank in the army. Like when you see the army, like some have different like color, like helmets, and so there's some kind of like hierarchical order there. I don't know if that can inform that if there's a hierarchical order in the military structure, then there might be something to say about the society itself. So I think this is. I mean, I don't like panels, but this is why like things like this that we engage with, so like stuff comes up that makes you also like think about like these things that you spend a lot of time engaging with. But yes, one thing too about the artwork, like it was also informed by the I don't know what it's called, the Black Panther newspaper. Like the characters in there, they replaced the guns with like spears and give them like fish futures. But I think that's and the person that created most of those cartoons is still alive, and I think in Detroit, the Black Panther cartoons, and so it's also coming from that, like, you know, that continuum of like, I don't know, producing fiction that's connected to like a real movement. It may be connected to like a political movement, but to like music. But it's like the representation of women was much more present in the Black Panther cartoons that inspired some of this, some of the stuff that Abdul created.
Are there more questions or comments? So if not, I want to thank everyone involved, especially our fantastic artists who made this really nice evening, fantastic event possible. So Lamin, Zen, Dash, thank you so much for everything you brought to Künstlerhaus. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.